Welcome, Drunk on Software, episode something or another. We're here with Stephan of, I'm going to say it wrong again, but
Devoxx.
I didn't want to blow it.
Used to be JavaOne.
Yeah, it's not my fault.
JavaPolis.
Exactly.
Yes, for some unnamed reason that we won't dive into here.
Yeah, I mean, when I think Java, I think like beans, right?
Beans.
And you know, those coffee people, they're very strict about their brand.
That's
Very
true.
strict.
That is true. But
Don't
luckily,
mess with Starbucks.
it didn't have any impact this year. So we did change the name to Devoxx, but we are still going to be sold out.
That's
which
great.
Is really great. So
How much is sold out for you guys?
3,200 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
From about 50 different countries. All the European countries are going to be present this year.
Awesome.
150 speakers and 5 days of fun. Yeah.
That's great.
Nice. So we're here in beautiful San Francisco.
Yeah, the weather's perfect.
It's too
We're
early to
outside.
drink, so we're just on caffeine. But you guys were at Max
Starbucks.
earlier this week.
That's right.
So what's the cool stuff
Well, I
coming out
think
of Max?
the highlight is that we finally got our preview of Thermo, which is now changed to, what is it?
Flash Catalyst.
Catalyst.
Yeah, Flash Catalyst.
And it looks really impressive. I mean, there's nothing out there that does something similar. I mean, I've seen Silverlight with their blends application, and it's not getting even close. JavaFX, we don't have anything yet for the moment. I mean, we're just working from Photoshop and Illustrator, and then exporting it using a JavaFX plugin or a custom plugin. But I mean, the Catalyst is really and the demo was really nice. They said like they started with design, then did the bridge to the development, and then the deployment, and it's going to be really very interesting to see that.
It's pretty exciting. I mean, that's been one of the number one challenges I've seen whenever I'm building something consumer facing and trying to work with the designer and just that total mismatch.
Getting the pixel perfect part of everything, right?
I feel like you're all, as a developer, so often letting them down, trying to bring integrity. I'm excited to take that dependency off of me and put it in.
Yeah. It's a shame we have to wait for Flex 4. I mean, hopefully we'll be able to really start working with this in production. The sooner the better. But that was really a highlight for me. Having that on the DVD made it available, so that's good. And then the Alchemy.
Have you tried it yet?
Not yet. I haven't had with the conference here and so on. But I have 3 batteries to fly back, so plenty of time to do that. And the Alchemy stuff, that was super.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. So for those that don't know, Alchemy is the ability to take C and C++ code and convert that to ActionScript bytecode essentially, and so that now you can take existing libraries, like they showed the Ogg-Vorbis library, they showed a PDF rendering library, they showed Quake, so they showed all these C and C++ open source libraries running inside Flash Player or in Air, so pretty impressive stuff.
How does that work in terms of like download size, true deployment of those?
It's certainly not small Swifts. I mean, it's gonna make for larger Swift files, but
if you need a library, you have an option now.
But even like small existing libraries, like they did the security part.
Oh, that's right. They did
MD5.
OpenSSL or something. I think.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah. So if you need that, and even if it's an Air application, you can include it in an Air application as well. And then it's just a one-time download. It doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting now that it's out there. It's on labs.adobe.com. Like what people do with it. People can. I'd like to see somebody like port WebKit or GTK or like there's so many interesting things.
I'm interested in how much of the C language is supported, because for Parleys, I want to have the socket listeners to do BitTorrent type of things.
So that's a good question. It can only do what the Flash Player can natively do. So it's in the end of the day running in Flash Player, and because Flash Player doesn't have socket.listen, even if you had a C application that did socket.listen, it's obviously not going to work.
Yeah, that was well. But it's a nice idea, because then I mean, one of my requests was like to allow Java to be included like in an Air application, so Java could talk to ActionScript and vice versa, and have it deployed together. But I think one of the issues not doing that is that you can't guarantee if that Java application will run on all the operating systems. If you convert it to ActionScript, you guys are still under control, and you know what's possible or not.
Absolutely.
But nevertheless, I would still like to see that.
Yeah. I think so.
Oops.
Yeah.
Or outside.
San Francisco is a loud place to do a conference.
Yeah, it looks like it. And another Visual Basic developer that just jumped off the roof.
So, as the ambulance fades in the background, you're up to all kinds of stuff. Should we jump in and talk about your conference that's coming up in a few weeks?
Yeah, it's another 2 weeks. I'm starting to get a bit nervous, but I think the schedule is set. We're only 100 seats away from being sold out. From that level, we won't have any loss this year, which it's going to be healthy.
That's for the way the economy is going.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you never know, right? So there's going to be around 3,000 people, which is great. And I think we really have some very nice subjects and interesting speakers lined up. I mean, definitely the RIA part in the whole spectrum. I mean, we have Adobe, which is there with some very interesting talks and hopefully some announcements as well. We have, of course, Sun finally coming out with JavaFX, which is, I mean, I think they called it their redemption talk because last year's keynote wasn't really that good, and so hopefully I'm really looking forward to this year's talk. And Bob Bruin took the effort to fly over just for the keynote, so I really appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to that. And even Microsoft is doing a Silverlight talk, where they will show Parleys developed in Silverlight.
That's great.
So we'll have all the different versions there.
And what's interesting about that is that, for you guys, one thing that's very important is to have ideally a standard video format that can be used across all of these different platforms. And Sun recently announced that they're doing VP6 on 2, and Flash has VP6 on 2.
And that's what we already use today.
Silverlight also announced that they're doing, was it VP6 on 2 or H264? It was H264.
Probably.
But so I guess we're getting closer, I guess.
But ideally that will be the ultimate target, right? I mean,
H264.
I assume so.
Yeah. So it'd be great if Java added H264 also, then no matter what platform you're on.
That's it.
I mean, even on the iPhone, it's H264.
Well, the problem, so what we're going to show at Devoxx as well is an iPhone version of Parleys, native one. But there were some technical issues actually. You can't, you can show a video, but you're unable to interact with the video. So you can't have cue points listeners and like show a slide if you want to go to the slide. So we weren't able to do the video stuff because of the SDK being limited in that level.
Interesting.
So what it's doing now, the iPhone version is downloading an MP3 with the cue points, and we can show slides and have audio in the background running. That works.
That's impressive.
So at least we have that. Which is great, and that's thanks to Vincent who really worked on this after these hours.
So for those that don't know, Stephan, Parleys is I would say one of your side projects, but it's one of the more exciting things I've seen that you're doing, where they've really built a video content delivery system that incorporates slides, demos, and the audio and video
and comments and it's very impressive that it's not just about here's video on the web. It's like this is for educational purposes.
Exactly, it's a lot more richer. Somebody called it a composite video presentation because you have the video and you have the slides. So it's really a composition of that. And we're going to be showing some really nice things. I mean, we've made the team a bit bigger as well. I mean, we have Ben, have now also Constantin working with us, and we're going to be showing some nice new versions at the conference.
Yeah, so there's some really awesome features. That
I can't wait to show it. Seriously, it's like, oh man.
I've seen the earlier versions, but it sounds pretty exciting.
That was one of the most exciting things at Devoxx last year was when you demoed it. I mean, it blew people away, that people
they didn't expect it from me either. I mean, I'm a Java guy for now 14 years or so, and they didn't expect that I would come with a Flex version because at the time, and maybe even still today, there aren't really any good alternatives. I mean, let's be honest, right? So I'm still very, very happy I did that. I made that decision. It really has really has worked well for us.
Well, it's been live for almost a year now on the site with the Flex version,
and it behaves very nicely. And so I'm very happy about that.
That's good.
You have though, out of being the Java guy that launched the Flash version, you've gotten those challenges. We should talk about the different versions that have been written since then. Is almost a challenge if that's the right way to say it or not.
The nice thing about announcing it at a conference like JavaPolis last year was that there's a lot of friends there, and people really reacted also emotionally, like saying like, man, I mean, why did you show a Flex version? And then so there was one guy, Jo, a friend of mine. He said like, well, Stephan, I will try to write a JavaFX version. And he did, and I mean, and this is like February of this year.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like every weekend or every night for like 2 weeks or something like that? He would work on it.
He worked every night for 6 weeks. Basically.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
And so after 6 weeks, evening sessions, he had developed
That's great,
a first
in your
player
spare time.
in spare time.
Yeah,
and it's a
that's
new
impressive.
language. There's only one book out there,
Yeah,
so there's not a lot of
very
information.
very early builds of Java.
And it's a moving target as well, right?
Yeah, APIs are changing.
So we have the JavaFX version, which is
That's
a great
impressive.
example. We have a Google Web Toolkit, a Grid version, which Tim wrote after his hours as well, which is all, and that's really impressive, they're all talking to the same REST interface.
That's great.
So the Flex, Air, Grid, and the JavaFX talk to the same server.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's nice. It really shows that that's possible, right?
Yeah, well, and totally making the SOA thing kind of real. You know, it doesn't matter what client is out there.
Yeah, and the same thing for the iPhone. The iPhone uses the same RESTful interfaces. What we have done this year, another thing is that the previous the version that's now public is running on Confluence, which is a wiki. But it was really creating some limitations. So we completely rewrote the server from scratch, using Spring, using Hibernate JPA, and so on. And so it's been a lot of work. But that's going to bring quite a few new opportunities for us, because now you can say, well, show me all the talks with the most view. You have different angles of viewing the content. So that's going to create some new opportunities as well.
That's awesome.
Well, you have such an interesting case study. I mean, you're in such a unique position that you've essentially built the same features in Silverlight, Gwt, JavaFX, Flash. You want to share? I mean, I've heard
Silverlight now as well.
Yeah. And I've talked to you a bit about some of the different opportunities and challenges that are there in each of those. We should dive into those a bit, because I think it's really interesting for people that don't have the time to go write the same thing in 5 platforms to really hear that real world experience.
Well, we've talked about that. It might be interesting to have a small article where we take one specific feature and just show the codes of each language and just see how they, you know, what similarities are there, what challenges are there. That would be a fun thing to do, actually, which I might do next year.
We're hoping that you do, because
there's the code differences, which I think is really interesting. There's also differences, like one of the things you've been critical of Flex around is not having like static analysis tools, and so like, you know, not just knowing about what's different about writing the code, but what's different about the whole like authoring experience. You know,
that is really like, we have a continuous integration environment, use Bamboo to run our Maven scripts. We have like hundreds and hundreds of unit tests on the server, but I ideally would like to have also, you know, ActionScript unit, or what is it? You know, Flex unit, that we can run it in the background, or even like use Selenium to do functional testing. And this is really happening. I mean, if I compare this to last year, there was almost nothing out there.
It's true.
This year, like at Max, there was an interesting company. Okay, the product isn't ready yet. It's going to be for beginning of next year. So we're still at that stage. But they're like recording all of the RPC calls you're doing. And then they're able to just play that back again. Just to do the functional part of your server.
There's one called Neoload that's doing that today, and then there's another one as well. So like you're saying, it was interesting that a year ago at Devoxx you pointed out, you know, this is a lacking part of the Flex kind of authoring environment, and now some companies are stepping up and beginning to build those tools.
It's a very healthy community, but on that level, I think that's where JavaFX will probably have a bit of an advantage, because we do have the whole scala of these enterprise tools and so on. But it's going to happen. I mean, for sure. I mean, there's somebody here, I think it's Scott, who did a Selenium interface on Flex. The only things that are like, well, you need to set up, because we run on Linux. You need to have a terminal or an X terminal, what is it, to be able to run. So it's a bit of an extra setup, which is not yet really documented to know how should I approach this.
Back in the old days in Java, before Java had the like built-in frame buffer thing, you had to like set up the frame buffer to do the same sort of thing with Java. So
it's very you see those patterns arrive again. And then the static analysis. That's not. I think it's only IntelliJ who has it now today. So in IntelliJ version 7, you can do a right-click, analyze your ActionScript code, and it gives you all the quirks and the junior bugs in your ActionScript.
It's like find bugs.
Like find bugs, but embedded in IntelliJ.
Wow.
So I'm really hoping that eventually that Flex Builder will support that.
Yeah.
But I think the next version already has a network monitoring. They showed something as well.
Did they show that already? Okay, so Flex Builder 4, I think we'll have some network monitoring features.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Do you know if it's on support probably AMF as well?
I'm sure,
right?
yeah, better if it doesn't work.
I would imagine that would be included.
That would be pretty important.
I think one of the other interesting challenges that I'm most concerned about out of your experience is that you ended up with almost duplicate code bases for your error and Flex applications. Can you speak a little bit to that and what you'd like to see Adobe do to address that?
I think a big trend, which we will also see at Devoxx next month, is modularization. There's going to be some interesting announcements being made, which I don't know the details of. But as you know, there's the JSR 277, which is Java modules, and then you have OSGI. Yeah. But the whole, Spring is pushing OSGI to the next level, where you have modularization. So it would really be super if you could have that type of modularization, like in a Flex and Air application, where you say, okay, this Flex application has, let's say, 3 modules, of which 2 modules can be reused in the Air application. And just by using your manifest file and have the dependencies, you would have a nicer way of integrating. I mean, now you can do this with Swift files, but it's
a little more kludgy.
Yeah, it's a bit more ad hoc. You don't really know the dependencies, versions, and so on. And that's going to happen. I mean, there's a company who's already done OSGI and ActionScript, but they're protecting that intellectual property for the moment, which I understand. But clearly, this is happening on the server. It's happening in the Java SE. I'm hoping it will happen in the Flex Air version as well. And then it's just a matter of adding an extra module which does more the Air-specific features, like doing clipboarding or file system access. And that's where I then also see that that's the advantage that JavaFX will have in the first level. I mean, you know that you can run the applets with applets 2 and just drag it out of the browser and run it as an application on your desktop using the Java WebStar technology. It would be super if we could have the same thing like with Flex.
They did a demo of that at the Sneaks. It was it was pretty interesting.
So what was that?
I think it was using Durango. There's some technology that's Air and an Air application, and then you basically make a Flex application in your browser enabled for this Durango thing, and then you could drag it out of your browser onto the desktop. So
that's great.
Yeah. So I think we're looking at some of that.
Most likely. I mean, I imagine that those are hopefully low-hanging fruits that Adobe can also cherish. So that's going to be interesting.
Is Anvil trying to address part of the modularity problem in that sense, or is that a different?
I think it's a little bit different of a problem. It's more of like a portal, like when you take like a multi-screen application that is very portal-like. That's what Anvil's more trying to address. The like wiring different pieces together, I think, is a different problem that we haven't really looked too much at in the ActionScript, Flex side of things.
Still very young as well.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I'd be interested if you know much about this, but I was just happened to get on a train with Rickard Oberg, and he was showing me Chief4j, and man, it just looked like a great way to wire applications together and seemed to make sense. And I'm wondering maybe if we could apply Chief4j to Flex, would that make sense? I don't know. So.
Well, personally, I'm more interested in what the Spring folks are doing with their DM server.
Okay.
Because they're really on top of, I forgot the name now, the OSGI kernel that they have chosen.
Okay.
They've really written a layer completely around it. So you can dynamically, well, first of all, you can have multiple versions of your libraries, of your modules, your bundles, next to each other. But then also swap them out, start them, stop them, and so on, and have these dependencies. So if you say, well, I just need Spring 2.5.5, it will just download it once, and all your applications can reuse that one single instance.
It sounds a little bit like JMX, like what JMX was trying to do.
It's JMX with Maven dependencies, like that type of stuff, and the versioning, and then the class loader tricks where you can have multiple versions next to each other. And that's going to be a big thing at Devoxx.
Is your take that the communities made its decision on what modularity platform they want? Because Sun's still going another direction with Java 7, and
well, I think it's going to get sorted out next month what the position is. And by the way, the OSGI library they use is Equinox. It's Spring. But I'm hoping, and again, I don't know. They didn't tell me anything. But I'm really hoping that 277 will just standardize on OSGI. I'm hoping, and I don't know anything, right? This is my personal.
The only reason I bring it up is I think we all recognize the need for it, but in the hope that it makes it to Flex, even in the Java world. Okay, everybody agrees we need it, but now we're kind of, I'd say almost even for the last year, it's kind of been a bit of a war on which solution we want. So
it takes time,
no, absolutely. I think it's totally, we're in a good spot. I'm just saying in terms of it now propagating into a whole new platform. It hasn't all the way made it out to Java developers where they're really, there are some, but I don't think the masses are taking advantage of those yet.
But like another red line into this year's Devoxx is REST. We did a call for papers. Had so many REST proposals. Right?
Bill Burke,
he submitted, and I had to apologize to him, but we actually had to reject his talk.
Oh no!
Because we already had approved so many other REST talks, and I was like, oh man. So sorry about that.
The challenges of planning a conference.
It's not always easy. You don't always know what's going to get in. Definitely with a call for papers thing. But the REST thing, like also the Spring folks, they're really they're now enabling the Spring framework with REST in version 3.0, and they're basically extending Spring MVC and adding IDs and things like that.
That's great.
But I think a nice opportunity would be is that like Blaze, because what we're doing with the new server, we're using BlazeDS to do binary communication because it's a lot faster, just for Flex and Air. And then we have a REST front end for the other technologies who don't use AMF. What is normally possible is that you should be able to do REST calls, but give binary back. Instead of now JSON or XML.
That would be really.
And then you have it combined.
Yeah.
So if you could have a RESTful BlazeDS implementation using AMF, but using normal HTTP REST calls, you have the best of both worlds.
That's really interesting.
The client tell you what they want.
Sorry?
Let the client tell you what they want.
Exactly. Based on the MIME time or the header or whatever.
Interesting. So jumping back to some of the Parleys case studies. I think the Flash version's the most interesting because you can do so much more. But we haven't really hit on some of the things you've learned about JavaFX and GWT. I want to talk about some of the challenges and pluses.
Before I answer that one, we do have also a pure Flash version as well. So we have these embeddable clients, which allows you to embed the talks, and that's a pure Flash developed version of Parleys.
I embedded it on my blog.
Yeah, you did. Thank you
great.
for that. It was really nice.
Yeah, it works really well.
It does it. I mean,
and you built that not with Flex because Flex, of course, has a bunch of overhead to it, and those sorts of widgets you don't want that overhead. And so this allows you to have like 30K or something.
It's I think 42K. So it's perfect.
So so that's great. And did you do that in Flex Builder with like an AS only project, or did you do it? Okay, you did it in Flash authoring.
So just to complement what you just mentioned. But you said the challenges or in the other languages?
JavaFX, we've alluded to actually some of the strengths through talking about the Flash with dragging out one code base. Certainly, your production version is the Flex and Air. So what limitations were there in JavaFX and GWT?
So the reason why we haven't released the FX version yet is that it doesn't seamlessly work on Mac, for example. Not yet. So once we have it really nicely working on Mac and Windows, we'll release it. But if we would release it now, people would really experience the hiccups that it has today. And I don't want to give bad publicity for the technology, so we want to wait for that. We're also waiting for the ON2 integration with the VP6 codecs. Because if you have that, we again have one codec that we can use for the multiple clients. But what was interesting to see is that with the JavaFX, the opportunity there is really existing Swing applications. You really will be able to, if it's Swing is often MVC based, is factor out your view, your Swing view with the JavaFX view and reuse your model. But more importantly, because the model you can often just reuse between the different languages, that's not really a big thing. But reuse your controllers, your logic, which you've invested on in Java. And I think that will be the low-hanging fruit opportunities for JavaFX. is migrate existing Swing applications or Swing applets to JavaFX and reuse your controllers and models.
Give a much improved interface.
Exactly. But I mean, it's a total different ballgame. If you know Java's Swing development, you can't reuse your knowledge in JavaFX because it's a different ballgame.
New language.
It's completely new. You really need to get used to it.
Do you think?
But hold on. But if that's too big of an investment, having your Swing expertise, it's a lot easier to make it a Grid or a GWT version out of it because that's a lot more. You have a lot more collaboration. GWT is like Swing development, so it would be a lot easier to go to Grid instead of JavaFX today.
Interesting. Yeah. So real quick on the JavaFX, could you ever really launch a site like Parleys on JavaFX? I mean, you're in the JRE, you can't. There's no deep linking, there's no indexing at all.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that they haven't thought about yet.
Yeah.
They've been focused so much on getting 1.0 out that I assume deep linking, history support, maybe even the back button, and that they haven't thought about it. But let's be honest, they just have to copy what Adobe have done, right? It's just a bit of voodoo script that you need to include, and you have it. So it's smart JavaScript, but it's out there, so that's not a big thing. It won't take like years to develop. It's a weekend's job, basically.
I'll be the cynical voice, we hope.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We've been waiting a couple years for version 1.0.
Yeah, sure, we should be skeptical, but...
but I fundamentally agree with you. These shouldn't be things that 2 years from now we're wondering when we're going to have.
For sure, yeah.
But I guess I asked the question partly in context of when you start talking about redoing Swing apps, I start thinking about more traditional desktop, which can certainly fit the RIA term, but in terms of the RIA space, it's like, okay, Swing's over there and desktop's over there, and now we're on these, in the browser, out of the browser kind of things. So.
Yeah, it's time will tell. Like another challenge is the Google friendliness. They did an announcement, or they showed also the collaboration with Google with the virtual user, or what is it? I still need to see that happen. For the moment, Parleys is being indexed by Google, but by doing a simple hack. With the static pages.
Cloaking essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm looking forward if that will work, because how will they know to the... Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. Totally. So I'm looking forward to that.
I think the interesting thing is that we haven't figured out all the problems yet, but we're at least working on it.
That's great. That's great. So hopefully JavaFX does the same thing, because they will have the same issues, right?
Yeah. Well, and you ran into that same problem even with Google Web Toolkit, right?
Yeah. Previous versions didn't really index correctly. So, but the newest version 1.5.3 should sort that out. So I don't really know yet, because I haven't published the Grid version yet. So, but we'll see what it brings.
I was pretty amazed at even like all the way down to the effects in the Grid version. It looked so much like the Flash version. Is that something a mere mortal can do, or did you have the?
The nice thing about that was that we had already a very nice transitional designed Flex application. So it's a lot easier, most likely, to copy by example than to start it from scratch. I heard that from the different developers, is that they really try to find a way to just mimic what was already there as transitions and so on. So it helps by example. And I think for JavaFX, looking at the code that Yo developed, it's really not that hocus pocus type of stuff.
Really?
It's rather, And for Grid, you just need to know what to use. I think Tim used Grid FX, which allows you to do special effects between states. And once you know that environment or that API, it's not too complicated.
That's great.
It's not something that I'm personally used to seeing though in a JavaScript-based application, so I was pretty impressed. I know we're seeing more and more of that, but it's a pretty sweet interface for being just browser dependent.
Yeah, glad you liked it.
Well, and Flash Player dependent to play the video.
Mr. Adobe, James Ward.
Flash there. It's true.
This is true.
Definitely. But what I'm hoping for, like if I look at the more complicated one, was the iPhone. I looked at the code that Vincent did, and it's you don't really feel like a fish in the water. You see that code.
Yeah, I've never looked at, what is it, Coco?
It's Objective-C, yeah.
Objective-C, and
you
I've
know,
never even seen Objective-C code. I don't even know if I'd look at it and be completely confused off the bat, or.
I mean, it would be so nice. I mean, people say, well, you could just use the grid version in the iPhone, but then you still need Flash for the video, so it wouldn't work, right? But wouldn't it be nice if I know all the developers are hoping for that we could just use Air or JavaFX, more higher level languages, and just run it on the phone, right? So maybe, if Apple won't do it, then we'll just have a look at Androids.
Right.
Because
we showed it, Flash Player running on Android this week.
Exactly. So that keep me thinking as well. Maybe an Android version would be easier to do.
Yeah.
Because now we can't do it for the iPhone.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and if people start buying devices because that sort of thing works on them, then maybe Apple will.
It's a good pressure
think
point.
About their
I hope so. I hope so. So Romain Guy will be doing an Android talk at Devoxx, showing one of the first devices. Definitely in Europe, we didn't have yet that much exposure to Androids. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's fun because Romain and Chet Haas, which is now at Adobe, they're going to be doing filter-rich clients beyond Java. So I found that so interesting to schedule these guys doing the Beyond one. And with the name change, because now we don't have explicitly Java in it anymore, we can be a bit more broader and a bit more flexible and cover other languages which work very nicely with the Java ecosystem.
It's really a lot of the excitement right now, it's kind of on the fringes of Java. There's, like, even with Flash, I think there's tons of tie-ins to Java, but you're really moving beyond just the core language and platform. So it's probably well timed to.
I think. I mean, actually, now I need to thank Sun that I have to change it, or I had to change it because I think it will be better for us. And it already reflects it in the schedule. I mean, we have Jython guys, we have the PHP people, we have Scala, we have JRuby. I mean, we have quite a lot of other dynamic languages, running on the VM. It's nothing to do with the Java language itself, right? Or not directly. So,
exciting.
Yeah, it's good fun. It should be interesting.
Cool. So before we wrap up, James, do you want to share the upcoming Adobe announcement at Devoxx, and we'll just wait to publish this? Or
oh man, it's going to be amazing. We're going to announce it's going to be cool.
We haven't done enough Drunk on Software interviews this week because I haven't gotten James intoxicated enough to actually get this piece of information out of him. So it's probably not going to happen with coffee.
It's going to be huge.
Well,
we'll have to record another one at Devoxx.
Can you conference me in on the phone?
We should come over, man.
Yeah, you should come over.
I should be. I apologize. I have no good excuse other than the day job. Well, cheers, fellas.
Yeah, cheers.
Thanks for coming on,
thanks,
Stephan.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks for watching.